with that, as I said, we're going to try something new today. All right, let's see if I can get my mic over here. And we are going to be talking about, if I can get this. There we go. Okay, Canadian ELD Part 2. This is Part 2 of the Canadian ELD system. I will put a link, I should have put a link in the show notes to Part 1. But today we're going to be talking about the Canadian ELD system, and I promised to make a video about exceptions. And so that's what this part is going to be about. And then we're going to get into Canadian conditional CVORs. All right. First of all, when we are talking about the Canadian ELD system, who and what ELD systems have been approved? If you are a Canadian carrier, by the way, and you know you're going to be regulated, you're a federally regulated carrier, so you know the new ELD rule is going to apply to you, then you've got to check out this link here. This one here is a list of certified approved devices. And as you can see, there is nobody on there yet. Here we are. This is February the, 12th, I think. February the 12th, and there's nobody on the list yet. So there are no devices approved. I had a carrier call me this week and ask, and he was so excited. He says, I just signed a new deal. I've got my ELDs going in. And I said, oh, who's the carrier? And he mentioned an ELD supplier that I had never heard of. And that raised alarm bells in it for me, because if I've never heard of them, are they going to pay the money to get their device approved? And this is one of the big differences between Canadian and the American rule, is there's a third party that has an approval process. And I understand it costs $20,000 per device to get approved. So some companies are going to pay that money, and others are going to say, well, the Canadian market just isn't big enough for us, so why should we do that? So be careful. This graphic I thought was pretty cool. Let me just step out of the way so you can see that. That is in the link below. I did put that in. I will put this link in the show notes after I'm off the air. I forgot to do that for you. But it is a list of approved carriers. So this device is pretty cool. Just to reiterate, the amount of devices that have been approved are none. Now, I have had some conversations with some suppliers or been on some webinars, and different suppliers said they are absolutely confident that they will meet the June 12th deadline. Yes, June the 12th is the deadline for Canadian ELDs. If there's an extension, who knows? There are some lobby groups that are trying very hard to lobby the government to have an extension, because it is late in the game and nobody has been approved yet. However, as I say, there are several of the manufacturers that say they will have several of their devices approved, and I suspect these will be the larger companies that will have them approved, and especially the Canadian ELD suppliers. I'm not sure who all the Canadian manufacturers are, but there's certainly Isaac, Geotab, Fleet Complete, Big Road are four that come to mind that are Canadian. At least I believe they're all Canadian, and I think they will all meet the Canadian mandate by June the 12th. That's an opinion, not a fact. All right, so who needs a log? So the exemptions are, again, just like paper logs. If you're operating within the 160th, as the crow flies, so draw a circle around your depot, and that would be it. You got to return to your home terminal every day, of course, to begin your 8 consecutive hours off duty. And the company maintains, and this is the kicker, this is what a lot of companies don't understand. Yes, your drivers may not have to keep a logbook, but the company maintains accurate hours of each day that the driver worked, the cycle that the driver was on, and how many hours on duty. So that has to be maintained. And then the other exemption, of course, is if you're not driving a commercial motor vehicle. So there are some other exemptions, oil field and permits and stuff like that. So if you are operating under any of those, of course, you would be exempt. So statutory exemptions is another one. This is an interesting one. The 30-day rental agreement. If you rent a truck, of course, the government's not going to make you install an ELD in a short-term rental. And the definition of short-term rental is 30 days or less. So if your truck breaks down and you need a short-term rental from Ryder, Penske, or many of the other rental companies, it's not a problem. You can rent that truck and you will be exempt, and you run paper logs. All right. And of course, if the truck is built before 2000, it doesn't have a computer in it, so you are exempt as well. So those are the exemptions. Just real quick, I just wanted to cover that. So that's the Canadian ELD rule. Nobody is approved yet. It costs money to get approved. I think only the larger manufacturers are going to say that there's enough business here in Canada to spend that kind of money to get approval. Because don't forget, several of the manufacturers have more than one device. There's one manufacturer, I was on their webinar this week, and they said they have they have more than 5 devices, but they're going to submit 5 to the Canadian government or to the third party approval. So they're going to spend $100,000. Well, in order to get that back, of course, and all the money that they are investing, there's some huge differences between the Canadian ELD rule and the American ELD rule. So there's a lot of software and development that goes into that before they even can submit. So it's quite expensive. I suspect only the larger, more popular carriers or manufacturers of ELDs will do that. All right, so